Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving deep into a really dramatic earnings report from telecom gear maker Tejas Networks. I mean, their Q1 numbers, they basically fell off a cliff, and it's got everyone asking, what on earth happened?
Okay, so let's get right into it. For the first quarter of fiscal year 2026, Tejas Networks brought in a net revenue of just 202 crore rupees. Now, to put that in perspective for you, for a company of this size, a number like that, it's not just a little low, it's a code red situation.
And just look at the sheer scale of this drop. We're talking about a company that went from almost 2,000 crore rupees in revenue in the previous quarter down to just over 200 this quarter. That's a drop of nearly 90%. You know, that's not a dip, that's a chasm.
And you know what happens when revenue just vanishes like that, right? The profits go with it. This massive sales crash led directly to a loss of 194 crore rupees. Now, they were already losing money last quarter, but this pushed them way deeper into the red.
All right, so let's really get into this. A drop this steep, it's not just, a bad quarter. There's a story here that absolutely needs explaining. I mean, seriously, how does a company's revenue just evaporate that fast?
So, what's the deal? What happened? Well, according to the company's management, it really comes down to one single massive reason for this whole mess. And it all circles back to a huge nation-building government project.
So to really get what's going on, you first have to know about BSNL. That's Bharat Sanchar Nigam Ltd, India's state-owned telecom company. And right now they're in the middle of this absolutely colossal project to roll out a 4G network across the entire country. And guess who's a key supplier for that? Yep, Tejas.
And here it is, the smoking gun, straight from the company's COO. A massive shipment for BSNL's 4G network. We're talking gear for about 18,000 different sites, was all supposed to go out in Q1, but it got delayed.
So, how big of a deal was this delay? Well, that single order was worth over 1,500 crore rupees. Think about that. When a deal of that size gets pushed back a quarter, it doesn't just, hurt your numbers, it absolutely craters them.
But okay, to be fair, it wasn't just a BSNL deal that caused all the problems. Management did mention some other smaller logistical issues, inventory delays, shipment clearances for a few other customers. And it's really important to remember, business didn't grind to a halt. They still made key shipments to other private and international clients.
All right, so that pretty much explains the disastrous headline number, right? But here's the thing. If you only look at that loss, you're going to miss what was actually happening behind the scenes. Because believe it or not, this quarter was packed with some really important strategic moves for their future.
For instance, they made some huge moves in their wireless business. They landed their very first deal to build a private 5G network. That's a massive new market for them. Plus, they locked in some critical partnerships with absolute giants. Rakuten to help them expand globally, and even Intel to get their chipsets integrated right into laptops. Pretty big stuff.
And that deal with Rakuten is a really big deal. Why? Because it's all about something called Open RAN. Think of it like this. It's a whole new way of building mobile networks. Instead of being locked into one company's gear, it lets different vendors' equipment all work together. It's way more flexible, way more competitive, and Tejas is planting its flag right in the middle of this massive shift.
And at the same time, their traditional wireline business, the bedrock of the company, was just firing on all cylinders. They won more orders for Bharat.net, that huge project to get broadband to rural India. They got new deals helping top-tier telcos get ready for 5G backhaul. And they even won tenders for critical infrastructure sectors like railways, oil and gas, and defense.
Okay, so we've got the story of the bad quarter, and we've seen all these positive new deals bubbling under the surface. So let's pivot now and look ahead. What does their future pipeline, their order book, actually look like?
So by the end of Q1, Tejas had an order book of over 1,200 crore rupees. But here's the kicker. That number doesn't even include that massive 1,500 crore BSNL deal we were just talking about. That's still coming. Now this chart here, it tells a really important story. You can see their business right now is just overwhelmingly focused on India. We're talking 92% of their order book. Now, on one hand, that shows you the incredible opportunity they have right here at home. But on the other hand, it's the classic all your eggs in one basket risk, and we just saw what happens when that one basket gets delayed.
Their balance sheet tells a really interesting story too. It's a story of preparation. See how inventory and borrowings are both up? That tells you they're spending money, they're stocking up on parts, all to get ready for these huge orders they know are coming. But at the same time, the amount of money they're waiting on from customers, that's still pretty high. But then the CFO dropped a really key piece of context. He pointed out that while yes, they're waiting on a lot of payments, they've also already received almost 1,500 crore rupees in advances from their customers. And you know what that is? That is a huge vote of confidence.
So when you look ahead, their game plan seems pretty clear. It's got a few key parts. 1. Push their new product lines, 5G, optical, all that good stuff. 2. Keep winning those big domestic deals in both private and government sectors. And 3, and this is a big one, use those new partnerships with giants like NEC and Rakuten to finally make a real push to expand globally.
So when you zoom out and look at the big picture, this whole Q1 story, it's really about timing, right? And about being heavily dependent on one single massive project. But the larger story, the real challenge for Tejas going forward, is about turning this incredibly promising pipeline into consistent, predictable results quarter after quarter.
And this final quote from the COO, it really just sums up their whole mindset. You can hear it, right? Despite this absolutely terrible quarter, they're signaling complete confidence in their long-term plan. They're basically telling the market, look, we're investing now because we know massive growth is right around the corner.
And that leaves us with the big final question, doesn't it? The potential is all there. I mean, the pipeline is full, the partnerships are in place, the demand here in India is undeniable. But for Tejas Networks, it all comes down to execution. Can they turn all of this incredible potential into actual consistent profit? That is the ultimate test.